on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Motherfucker, he's on his...
Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Yes, you are.
Oh my God, I'm well rested, Dylan.
Are you?
Yeah.
You've been working your ass off.
Oh yeah.
Apologies, we had to skip Offbeat this week
Oh my God.
due to Dylan's scheduling conflicts.
Yet another reason I'm going to quit this job.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, but here we are.
You better not say that. What if, one of your supervisors listens to the podcast and then they fire you?
I appreciate them being a fan of the podcast. They should visit us at patreon.com Mountain Murders, however that works.
Yeah?
And
Love how you never get the web address correct.
B, they can't do that.
They can't?
Nope.
How do you know?
I'm in a union.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they can eat my ass.
There's no stipulation about podcasting and...
Threatening to quit.
Yeah.
Nope. No language in the contract.
Dylan, let's thank our new patron sponsoring today's show.
Yes, we'd like to thank Brian for his sponsorship at Patreon. Thank you very much, Brian.
Wow, we are heading into the holiday season, Dylan. Just a few days away from the big C, the C word.
I feel like we're dead in the middle of it.
Dylan, I can't wait for you to show me your big Yule log.
Yeah, I can't wait for commercial Christmas.
Yay! We have all of our shopping done, and we're trying to squeeze in this episode because after we record, we're heading up north.
We're going to Michigan.
Oh, I thought you were going to say to the North Pole.
Oh, damn, sorry. That would have been a great bit.
Yeah, Santa's sleigh is taking us all the way to Michigan.
It might as well be the North Pole.
Might as well be. It's pretty cold up there, Dylan. The temperatures are in the 20s and 30s right now.
Ooh.
I think we're going to freeze.
It's been like 60 degrees here in western North Carolina.
We've had a very tropical Christmas.
It's a moist Christmas.
Yeah, moist, tropical, rainy.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you ready to get into part 2 of the Rae Carruth case?
Yeah, I mean, I know how this works out, but I want to see how you take us home. If that makes sense.
You ready for me to hit a home run?
Yes.
Okay. In part 1, we ended with Amber Turner, Rae's former girlfriend, showing up in Charlotte to support him in his time of need, if you recall. And she was completely blindsided when Rae had a new love interest staying in the home that she'd once shared with the pro athlete.
Rae likes the ladies.
So she went from being head of the house or lady of the house to house guest. It was awkward. So the next morning, just after she arrives, she flies back to Colorado, feeling rejected by a man she had dropped everything to help. Now, it seems Rae Carruth only likes women when they're serving him, taking care of him, yet he offers little in return to these women in his life.
Yes, it definitely seems that way, and he seems a bit shallow, right?
A bit, and you remember in part 1 we left you with Rae getting arrested with his dick out.
Yeah.
He is butt naked, answers the door doing the helicopter.
That's how I answered the door.
For law enforcement.
So it's more like a drone.
Yeah, gets cuffed. Well, it was a few months later that she'd been thinking about Rae's situation, Amber Turner, and that's when she decided to phone Jeff Mooney, Sharika's dad. He held a position with an insurance company in Charlotte, so she was kind of able to track him down through his occupation. When Amber finally got him on the phone, she told him how she wanted to speak to the prosecutor. And now, of course, Jeff doesn't initially understand this woman's motivation. Perhaps she was working an angle for Rae Carruth. But Amber explained that she'd lived with Rae and had gotten pregnant by him twice. And both times he had threatened her life and forced her to have abortions. She also confirmed that what Sharika's family already knew, that he didn't want to be a father.
So if you were a juror on this jury, would that be compelling evidence for you?
I mean, it's definitely circumstantial, but it would plant a seed in my brain.
So past behaviors with a past lover or whatever would definitely kind of make you think.
Exactly. He had no interest in raising a baby with Sharika. She had also heard him make passing comments about Michelle Wright, his other baby mama, like how he should have her killed and their son as well.
Can we say the mother of his child?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Why?
I don't know.
I like to say baby mama and baby dad. I call my ex my baby daddy. Is that a problem for you?
Yeah, it's
Fine.
triggering.
It's the why? Because your baby mama crazy.
Well, there you go.
Okay, I get that. Well, I'm the mother of your children, Dylan.
No, my concubine that puts forth my seed into the world.
You bastards.
Yes,
I'm just
my
kidding.
life basket.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with
like
that.
You're Robert Baratheon. You just have bastards everywhere.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, well, I'm sorry I was triggering you. I just like to use the slang the kids use these days. Trying to keep it funky fresh.
That was our slang, man. Come on.
Baby mama?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the NFL made a decision about their wide receiver. Under their violent crime policy, if a player is arrested, charged with a crime, they don't have to pay the weekly salary. So Rae's $38,000 per week was no more. This released the funding so that the Panthers GM had it available to offer incentives to other players. However, he'd still be listed on the players' 53-player roster, or on the team's 53-player roster.
Yeah, it's funny, they have this code of conduct, but it seems like it's, of course, obviously Rae Carruth, you got murder, and that's a very serious matter, but, some other players had, been Ray Rice on video punching a woman out in an elevator. It seems like he should never be allowed to play in the NFL ever again.
Well, we're going to get to more of the policies and how this case actually changed the NFL's shaping of that crime policy.
Okay.
We'll touch on that in a minute. So in the meantime, Sharika was in a coma at Carolina's Medical Center. Her internal organs were septic. When she was shot, her bowels ruptured, releasing harmful bacteria into her bloodstream. She had to be operated on in order to surgically clean the pus and dead tissue, which is not a good sign.
No, that's very unfortunate that it ruptured her bowels, because that quite possibly could change everything if that hadn't happened and, she had received medical attention.
Rae determined after a conversation with his stepfather, Samuel Carruth, that the best outcome would be for him would be like if Sharika survived. The possibility of the death penalty would be off the table. An acquitted Rae Carruth could be back on the field earning millions and could offer to set her up for life along with Chancellor, their baby. However, things took a downward turn on December 14th. Rae received news that Sharika Adams had died of organ failure. The terms of Rae's bond were very specific. Rae had been released on a $3 million bond, if you recall, while his co-conspirators were stuck in jail. The terms stated that if Sharika died, Rae would have to surrender himself to law enforcement. His attorney advised him, "You better do it today."
Well, that's interesting. I've never heard of a bond being that specific.
Well, $3 million is a lot of money.
Well, it is, even at 10%, so you got to come up with $300,000 to get even to a bondsman, right?
Yeah, if you remember, he put up his mother's house. He put up his own house. He had that cash for loans business that on paper looked like he had turned a profit, but really he'd lost all of his money.
So basically, he was living off his paycheck.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know how the poor guy was making on $38,000 a week.
It's just chump
Seriously,
change, bro.
But no, so what they're basically saying is, if she does die, and now it's murder. We're going to go after murder. Everything's going to be more serious. You're in more trouble, and we want you to, not be a flight risk.
Yes. Now, his attorney, like I said, was like, "You need to come here today, turn yourself in." And if he didn't, he'd lose that $3 million, and it would look even worse in court, is what his attorney advised him. The prosecution could definitely use this against him. Rae's old flame from Colorado, Dawn Lee, was with him when he got the news. If you recall, he dated her when he was in college, and she was an exotic dancer. Kind of gave him a taste for the dancing ladies.
So do you hook back up with him after he's out on bond of possible,
well, all these women want to flock to Rae to help him.
Oh, because
they all need to offer their support, Dylan, in his time of need.
Yeah.
He's just so pitiful.
And so basically
It's baby Rae.
He couldn't do this. He's being wrongfully accused. You think they're acting like that, maybe?
Oh, we'll get to that.
Okay.
All right. So she's with him when he gets this news. They are actually driving around Charlotte. They hear it on the radio first, and he calls his attorney. His attorney's like, "You need to go turn yourself in." Rae instead takes her out to some really fancy restaurant. They have this really elegant meal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
just bawling.
Nothing gets a date started like a date night started like hearing that now your victim's dead and you need to turn yourself in for murder.
Yeah.
Okay.
He has to go eat a really extravagant meal, which folks were saying in my research that since he had been arrested and had spent some time in jail and thought he might have to go back to jail, he was going out and eating these very like high-end restaurants, having these really fancy dining experiences.
Okay, so he's like Tom from Secession.
Yeah, he's like, got to eat the good food before he goes to jail. Hey, I understand. That's how I would feel as well.
Well, the food is a major sticking point in jail. Obviously, it's not good, I've heard, and I've seen a little bit myself. But it's very basic.
You're going to eat the fruit cocktail off the floor.
It's high on starches. It's just not, you don't get to choose. I think that'd be the worst part of it, don't you? You don't have like a menu you get to pick from.
Well, I'm not picky about what I eat. Like I will eat most anything, but I'm picky about like I don't like cheap shitty food. I like seasonings and spices and flavor.
You don't like multiple starches in the same meal?
I don't.
So
I would have a real problem with jail food.
You're screwed.
Because I'm a little bit of a foodie, right? Would not be cool. Okay, so they're out having a meal, whatever. Well, during this, she's telling Rae, you've got to turn yourself in. But Rae said he needed to get away, return home to Sacramento, and clear his head.
Oh, so you're talking about going on the run.
Well, as soon as Rae realized he would need to turn himself in, he contacted a friend named Wendy Cole. She was from California, but lived in Charlotte. Wendy was a friend of his mother, Theodre's, so she was like more of a family friend than a love interest, because all of these other female friends are kind of like former lovers, old flames, or maybe women he just hooks up with.
So she's more of an actual friend, old friend.
Right, not like a friend with benefits.
Okay.
Well, Wendy was a hairdresser who had once owned a very successful salon in town, and he pleaded with her to please take him home to California. And if we've learned anything about Rae Carruth, he's very charming and manipulative when it comes to women.
And he's cute.
He is cute. So he kind of gets his way, right?
You're hot for Rae Carruth. What the hell?
Okay, he's no Dylan Packer, but I mean, he's all right.
Oh, God.
I'm not interested in him now. He'd blow my head off or something. He's a piece of shit.
Just
okay.
don't get pregnant. You can't get pregnant, so you'd be safe.
Well, his desperate cries for help eventually became too much for Wendy. There was some cosmetology training that she had wanted to take, so that would be her excuse for taking time off from work. Rae told her they would have to leave tonight. So this night, December 14th, we have to leave. He finally coerced Dawn Lee, his friend, into driving him over to Wendy's house. And she at first was just like, no, this is a really bad idea. You need to turn yourself in. But when she saw he was so like set on leaving and there was no changing his mind, then she was like, okay, fine.
So he's contacted his old friend to drive him to Sacramento?
Yes.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
Once there, Rae laid out a plan for their trip. Hiding in the trunk of her 1997 Camry, stocked with candy bars and energy drinks, they set out on a road trip around 10:30 p.m.
Is his plan that he's going to ride in the trunk all the way to Sacramento?
Yeah.
Oh, my God, Rae, dude.
3,000 miles in a fucking trunk of a Camry.
Slamming candy bars and energy drinks?
And, Ray's not he's not big like 6'5" wide receiver, but the man's still 5'11". He's a pretty big guy to be shoved in the trunk of a car.
Yeah, he had to be in like an old LTD or some shit, some old ass, 6 foot by 5 foot trunk, right? They
went west on Highway 85, then picked up Highway 40, heading toward Nashville. When they were about an hour from Nashville, Tennessee, near Parker's Crossroads, Wendy called back to Rae in the trunk. They're calling on cell phones.
Nice.
Yeah. She explained they had driven for a while and she was tired. Wendy needed to pull over and catch a few hours of sleep. Once she got to the motel, Wendy started feeling a lot of concern about what she'd gotten herself into. This whole situation was just too much. Rae insists he's going to stay in the trunk of the car the whole night. We can't be seen together. She tells him, well, if you get cold, this is my room number, come in.
And unfortunately for Rae, he's famous. So he's got a face that people are going to know. I mean, you're talking about sports fans. And all this has been all the talk. I'm sure it's been all over ESPN, all the news channels.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about it. So he is probably, that might be one part of his plan that's true, that he literally can't, no matter where he's at in the country, he could be recognized easily.
Police were indeed searching for Rae Carruth by now. As soon as Sharika died, a first-degree murder warrant was issued against him. When he failed to turn himself in, his name was entered into the National Crime Information Center database. Theodore had gotten a call from law enforcement asking if she knew the whereabouts of her son. Worried about him being on the run, she got in touch with a news station, hoping to make a plea for Rae to turn himself in.
Okay, so like a national...
This is like a Charlotte news station, because she thinks he's just on the run in Charlotte. She looks into the camera and asks her son to please do the right thing. Trust the system and turn yourself in. Theodore was afraid if Rae was on the run, because he was famous and because he was a black man, that he would be shot and killed by police.
Well, I think any mother would be concerned, and I think she has some reasons to be extra concerned in this situation. So, I think any mother would just want their son safe, even, and just kind of, see if the system, even if you think they didn't do it, or even if you think they did do it, you just don't want them to get killed, right?
Yeah. Sitting alone in the rented motel room, Wendy thought about what she was doing. She never in a million years thought she would be hiding a fugitive. And definitely she didn't wake up that morning thinking, like, in a few hours, I'm going to be on the run with a fugitive.
So it's kind of sunk in for her.
Yeah, it really hit her. So realizing she wanted nothing to do with Ray's problems, she phoned his mother. Theodore told Wendy to call the bondsman in Charlotte. Wendy then phoned the man, explaining the situation. He thought of getting a few of his men and tracking them to Nashville, but ultimately decided to turn the information over to the Charlotte Police Department. Within an hour, FBI agents with a federal fugitive warrant arrived at the motel. The agents explained it was not their intention to hurt him, Dylan, and they kept asking Wendy, like, where is he? And she, didn't want to tell them until they finally guessed, is he hiding in the trunk? And she was kind of crying and admitted that's where he was.
So I did not know this part. I did not know that the person he was with turned him in.
Yeah.
Because I always wondered how they found him. So that makes sense.
And when she told the agent, yes, he's hiding in the trunk, she was like, please don't tell him I'm the one that told you. Or that I made the call.
Right. It'd just be like you were randomly checking parking lots in Nashville, hotel parking lots, and trunks.
Rae is busted in the motel parking lot hiding in the trunk. He had $3,900 in cash and a cell phone in the trunk. The wide receiver was curled up in a fetal position with his pants down around his ankles.
Oh, wow.
How embarrassing.
He'd gotten comfortable.
Good.
So I'll never forget a Steve Harvey bit about him talking about, he was thinking, Lord, don't let that boy be in that trunk. And sure enough, he was in that trunk.
Yeah. Well, he also had his pants down probably because he had a Gatorade bottle that he was doing his little pee-pees in.
He was making the pee-pee?
He was making a pee-pee in a little baba.
Oh.
He little baba. He was doing a little pee-pee.
Him was trying to get comfy so he'd go night-night.
So how embarrassing, right?
So here he is naked again, getting taken into custody.
You're a big famous football player, right? You think you're like this big stud muffin, and they catch you in the car with your pants down. And then that's the old saying, right? Getting caught with your pants down.
Making water in a Gatorade bottle.
I'm going to start, instead of saying getting caught with your pants down, I'm going to call it getting Carruthed.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 days later, Rae Carruth appeared in a Tennessee court where he said he would turn himself in. U.S. Marshals transported him back to Charlotte. Michael Kennedy and Van Watkins, the co-conspirators, were told that any bonds they could have had possibly, because remember, they couldn't come up, theirs was like $1 million, like I think $1.2 million, and they couldn't come up with that money. But the judge revoked any bonds since Sharika had died.
Well, yeah, and plus he ran. So, I mean, the likelihood of him getting another bond is virtually zero.
Right, and his co-conspirators, like, you're not getting any kind of bond now. The Panthers waived him the next day, citing a morals clause in his contract. He was suspended indefinitely from playing professional football. In the locker room, Carruth's personal items were removed, and so was his nameplate.
And so they're just, the football teams are a business. So at this point, they just want to clear him off the roster, get another player in his spot, and keep moving.
And disassociate as much as possible from his name.
And it would liquidate his contract, and that gives them more
Free all this money
capital to spend on other players. And maybe I'm sure some people were just like, I can't believe this guy did this. I don't want any association with him.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much what the entire team felt like. Sharika Adams' funeral was at Victory Christian Church, and she had about 1,000 attendees. Like, people were lined up outside trying to get in to pay their respects.
Man, I don't think there'd be 10 people at my funeral.
Oh, honey, how cute of you to think I'd even bother with having you a funeral.
Oh, well, I mean, like the after party. Or at least do an after party, right?
Well,
have a barbecue or some shit?
Me and like your two friends we'll drink. How about this? We drink a 40 and we pour a little out for our dead homie. Dylan.
Okay.
Does that work?
Okay, it's got to be like Colt 45 or something, or a Natty Daddy.
Well, it'd probably be the Natty Daddy.
Okay.
That's what you drink.
You're going to have to get 2 of those because they don't come in 40s.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. Or I'll just get a 40 of Schlitz malt liquor or something.
That works.
I had a cat named Schlitz one time.
It's the Slits.
Chancellor, Ray's son, Sharika's baby, had been moved out of the neonatal intensive care, and temporary custody was actually given to Sharika's mother.
Now, and Charlotte has at that time especially, a world-renowned neonatal intensive care unit.
They do. Actually, my son was in that neonatal intensive care unit for about a month after he was born.
My youngest nephew, was there as well.
And it was fantastic. My son Zane had to be on this specific machine that Charlotte, the Carolinas Medical Center, their pediatric hospital, is like one of the only places on the East Coast that has that particular machine.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a fantastic hospital. But custody was given to his grandmother. David Rudolf, a Chapel Hill attorney who would later defend Michael Peterson of the staircase fame. You know, we've covered the Michael Peterson case.
Well, I think the owl did it.
It was the owl. Who?
Yeah, that was the owl's defense. I was like, who?
Knock, knock, who's there?
Who?
Who?
Who this?
It's the owl.
The owl's from Louisiana all of a sudden.
Yeah, who dat? Okay, so anyway, this guy, David Rudolph, he becomes Ray's defense attorney. Now, it's kind of interesting how this happened. Theodore is on the phone calling. She's trying to get some attorneys. You know, he had the one attorney who had kind of represented him to get the bond and all that. But she was like, I need an attorney I'd like to have a black attorney. And I would like somebody who has done these pretty high profile cases.
Well, and you do need an attorney familiar with this. You're going to have press. You're going to have, all eyes on it. You can't have just a regular attorney, even if they're a good attorney.
Well, the Charlotte attorney that he had been using recommended a guy in Durham named Ken Spalding, a very famous African-American attorney, kind of known in that Durham, Raleigh Triangle area as like a fucking shark, like really good attorney. But he was like, I can't take this case on right now, but my friend David Rudolph will. So he was still kind of working as part of like the dream team. They assembled several lawyers to help with the case, but Rudolph would be the actual attorney appearing in court and trying the case. And people described him as being a bulldog. He's very charismatic, really dramatic, and some people say he's a pain in the ass. Like, some of the jurors are like, this guy's a pain in the ass, but he knows how to drive home a good defense strategy.
Right.
Like, he's really a good attorney. He's the kind of attorney that if you're in the shit, you want this guy. And not a cheap attorney either.
I was going to say I could never get this guy.
Probably not.
Unless my case was so sensational that they did it just to get the exposure.
Well, you are a true crime podcaster, so that could be the case.
I'm a very, very
so famous,
tiny celebrity in Haywood County.
Yeah, a little teeny tiny town.
I'm just a wee little celebrity.
Just a cool little teeny tiny boy.
Hey, ain't you that guy on that podcast that says dumb shit?
That's the one.
How about that's me?
Okay, so David Rudolph, he is going to be Carruth's attorney from henceforth. Another search, I'm sorry, I said a search warrant. You'll have to forgive me, I'm loopy. Another wrench in this already crazy story. So we've got, the entire story's nuts, right? Ray's hiding in a fucking trunk, like what else could happen? He's gotten dialed out by his ride, his old friend, which she did the right thing. This story takes so many twists and turns, and here's another one for you. A jailer named Shirley Riddle had heard Van Watkins say, quote, none of this would have happened if he'd just paid us the money. Riddle had been noticeably chummy with Rae Carruth when he had been in jail like the first time. So when she delivers this information to her supervisor, like the commander, he shut her down. First, he felt her relationship with Carruth seemed kind of inappropriate, and they didn't need to be involved in such a high-profile case. He's like, just keep your mouth shut. Riddle then confided in her friend, Sergeant Tom Stamps, about the predicament. Stamps was a by-the-book kind of guy, and he found this very troubling that the commander would direct her to silence this information. Stamps' internal conflict got the better of him. When he saw David Rudolf at the jail, the attorney, he shared the information with him. Riddle had been called into the cell by Watkins, who said he wanted to make a full confession. So she had gone in and she'd written it all down. Now, at first she was like, I can't get involved in this. I don't want your confession. I don't know what you have to say. Like, it's not my job to get involved.
Right.
But he just kept on and on until she was like, fine. She goes in there with a piece of paper. She writes down this full confession. Watkins said he was trying to find Rae Carruth and then ran into his girlfriend on the road. He tried to talk to her as she was driving, like get her to roll down her window, but she flipped him off. Then he lost it and began shooting.
Oh.
Now Rudolph had a credible defense for Rae Carruth.
So they're
from this jailer.
So basically, this was not intentional murder. It was just some crazy thing that happened. Some kind of weird road rage, I guess.
Well, we're going to get into the specifics of this.
Okay.
We're going to get to a lot of the questions you have, Dylan, will be answered in time. I might seem like I'm jumping around a little bit, but there's like kind of multiple timelines or multiple things happening kind of in the same period. So if I'm skipping around, bear with me. It will all make sense in a minute.
Ooh, it's like me making a point.
10. Exactly. So in family court, Sandra Adams was granted temporary custody of baby Chancellor, and attorneys, especially Ray's own attorney, demanded, like, you need to take a paternity test, first and foremost. Like, we need to know this is your child. And he was the baby's father.
Okay.
Van Watkins took a plea deal, and the deal said he would not be sentenced until Carruth and the other men were tried. David Rudolph told the press he wasn't surprised by Watkins' acceptance of this plea deal. Now, he's the gunman.
Yeah, well, Rudolph is basically, without saying it, saying, you know, he's the one that stood the most responsibility in a situation, and it doesn't surprise him that he took a plea deal, right?
Yeah. For Candace Smith, if you remember, she was Ray's kind of girlfriend, friend. She had been dating the other basketball player, Charles Shackelford. It's the one that Sharika, they had the big confrontation out in a parking lot. Like, bitch, I'm going to kick your ass kind of thing. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's when you just never know.
Yeah.
Right?
So Candace Smith, she finds Ray's arrest in Tennessee mind-blowing. She told her boyfriend, Charles Shackelford, that while they were in the hospital, Rae confessed to hiring the two men in this Nissan Altima to shoot Sharika Adams. And Shackelford tells her, you need to get a lawyer, and I will pay for it.
Tells Rae that?
Tells Candace this.
Oh, he said, oh, you could have, yeah, okay, I got you.
You need a lawyer. Like, this is some heavy information. We got to take care of you. Make sure you're covered on this, because this could come into play.
Well, yeah, I mean, if the investigators or the prosecution was to find out about that, they definitely want to have you there.
Now, I'm just going to give you a little FYI here, Dylan. Death penalty cases cost about $200,000 more than non-death penalty murder cases. And the non-death penalty ones typically run between $50,000 to $70,000. A death penalty case can cost you nearly $300,000 to defend.
Now, okay, I don't get it. Why?
Specialist,
expert? I thought you meant all the way through the appellate process, maybe, which would kind of make sense.
No, this is just for the first trial.
Yeah.
The attorney, billing hours, all this work, and, private investigators.
And I'm sure there is some added cost and extra lengths you go to on a death penalty case, but let's be honest, there may be some lawyers out there listening to us right now. They just set their own prices. I've seen that for myself.
Well, they typically charge about 150 to 200 an hour.
They just charge whatever they want. They tell you what it's going to be, and either you want them to be your
I'm
attorney
just saying,
or not.
I worked for an attorney, and I can tell you how it works, Dylan.
Well, I'm just telling you.
And we actually defended some murder cases when I worked there.
I had a
And
case.
represented them. So $50,000 is about what it would cost to hire an attorney.
I had a case that a blind, deaf Martian could have put forth in court.
Okay, that's ableist.
Ableist towards the aliens. I'm sorry. So that's that's Earthist as well. I'm sorry. I apologize to everybody involved in that.
A monkey on cocaine could defend it as well.
A monkey on cocaine, but in there you're disparaging an entire group of primates, so that's probably not a good idea either. So let's just say anyone could have put forth this case and won it, and I was charged an exorbitant amount of money.
Well, it was a civil case.
Oh, there you go.
Look, divorces and that kind of shit is expensive, bro.
It's okay. We'll move on.
Just saying.
But I'm just saying the only reason it's expensive is because they're just like, look, that's going to be $5,000, and you're like, why? Because you don't.
That attorney has to go to court and deal with your crazy ex, so there's that.
It wasn't even that hard. But let's go. So I did not know that those kinds of prices.
Yeah,
the
well,
differences.
thanks for derailing me. I was just trying to give you guys a good idea of like how much Rae was looking at here for his death penalty case.
So instantly, it's almost quadrupled.
Yeah,
basically,
it's a lot of fucking money, is what it is, bro.
Well, it's a lot of money for a man who's already had his revenue cut off.
$3 million bond.
He already has his mom's house on the line, and is already doesn't have money because he, bad business ventures.
He loves bad business. That's his fucking problem.
Yeah. I like bad business, and I cannot lie.
It's true. So, Attorney Rudolf filed motions asking for Rae Carruth to be tried first because it was such a high-profile case, and the courts did agree to this because it was just like wall-to-wall media coverage. When the trial began, prosecutors contended that Rae had hired Van Watkins and the other men to carry out an assassination on Sharika Adams and her unborn child because she refused to have an abortion and he didn't want to pay child support. Rudolf, Rae's lawyer, claimed his client had been caught up in a drug deal gone wrong. According to his defense, Michael Kennedy and Van Watkins had wanted a loan from Rae to buy some marijuana. Carruth had backed out of the loan, telling them he didn't want to be involved. He wasn't going to give them this money. They attacked Watkins as a witness. His credibility was shit after all. He was a violent felon with a lengthy criminal record. They painted him as a psycho drug dealer who couldn't be trusted to tell the truth.
Ooh.
Also, Shirley Riddle, the jailer's testimony, made Watkins' testimony even more suspect. Typically, a jailer, an officer, would be on the prosecution side, but her story backed up Rae's claim that the shooting was over a drug deal.
So the very first thing she heard about it was basically if he had gave us the money, none of this would have happened.
Yes.
Okay.
The defense's real obstacle was that 911 call, Sharika Adams' own words. Then there were witness statements that she had written to police while she was in the hospital before she fell into a coma. Seeds of doubt could be planted by saying she was on anesthetic drugs from the operation, which called into question her soundness and judgment. It was enough doubt, the defense believed, to make a jury hesitate on the murder charge. And if you think about it, I mean, once I kind of started thinking about what they're painting as the defense, it does give me some doubt.
Well, and you got this third party who's not involved, what their true intentions are, we may not know, but you have this jailer. I mean, they get a little bit of credence, their opinion matters. And so that gives a little weight to the situation, right?
Yeah, and then your number one, witness is a drug dealer who claims he's a hitman, claims he's murdered multiple people, has a lengthy criminal history involving chasing his wife with a butcher knife, setting a man on fire, shooting his brother, stabbing his brother, or whatever he did.
So here's a clearly violent person.
Yeah.
Who
with a short fuse.
Who seems to react badly in multiple situations. So yeah, I mean, I guess it has some legs.
Well, at the time, Carruth was the only NFL player to ever face a murder charge. Not long after, Baltimore Ravens player Ray Lewis got entangled in a double homicide. Cecil Collins of the Miami Dolphins was charged with burglary, and Mark Schmerna, Am I saying that correctly?
I don't know. It's before my time.
Smyrna of the Green Bay Packers was charged with sexually assaulting his 17-year-old babysitter.
Okay.
What the fuck, NFL? Violence within the NFL could no longer be ignored. Because of Rae's situation and then following these, I mean, because it was kind of like boom, boom, boom. Right after this, you had these other players getting
So you
in
had all
trouble.
these high-profile cases kind of in a row.
There was a new anti-violent crime program that was created, and though Rae hadn't touched a football in the previous season, the Panthers were still fielding a lot of questions from reporters. They wanted to distance themselves as much as possible from him. His celebrity as a football player had diminished, but his notoriety as the player who'd murdered his girlfriend in a driveway was growing as the trial date neared. Rudolf worried his client was not going to get a fair trial because the jury pool in Charlotte was tainted by all of this media coverage. And I just bring this up because it's all over the place. They're airing the trial on court TV. This is kind of like one of the first big, like, high-profile cases to air on court TV, where you have, like, days and days of coverage.
Right.
Tune in every day and watch it. So that was a big part of it. And then you've got the Panthers just totally, like, kind of throwing him under the bus. Like, we don't want to fuck with him. We don't even know who that is. Like, when they're asked questions, they just try to play like they don't even know who Rae Carruth is.
They just want to move on.
Yeah.
Get away from him, disassociate themselves with him.
But the trial judge was a man named Charles Lamb, who was known as being very fair-minded. Sitting near Theodore behind the defense table was a group of women supporting Rae, nearly 30 in all.
Good Lord.
Many of these women had their photos tucked away in that little shoebox at Rae's home. Remember I told you he had a little shoebox with his lady pictures in it?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the women he'd,
To all the girls I've loved before.
that he knew in a biblical sense. Yeah. Well, all of them women was there.
Okay.
So he got hosed in the back row.
So that's a spectacle, right? All these women, all these probably cute.
And they're all, well, that was the thing people reported. They were all like these drop dead gorgeous women. They all look like models, exotic, very beautiful. Yeah.
Raised at the defendant's table like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah. 29 of the 30 women would end up testifying in Rae's defense.
Wow.
As like character witnesses.
Yeah, it's be like the whole time I was, having my fling with him, he never murdered me. I mean, I'm sitting right here, right?
They would describe him as a wonderful man, a lover, a friend, a brother, a man incapable of committing such a horrific crime.
Wow. How do you instill brotherly feelings into the women you're having sex with?
Well, I guess some of them were not sexual partners.
Oh, just let me
Some
do
were
it.
Just friends. Well, like one of them, I think, was his cousin Tiffany. Hey, puppy. Sorry, we have our podcasting friend.
Guy's getting worked up over there. That string is driving him crazy. He's about to lose it.
Sorry, y'all. It's okay. One of my favorite podcasts, their cats are always making noise in the background. So.
Yeah, it was either let him in or he'd be scratching at the door.
Yeah, and then probably like leaving me a pile of shit at the door.
Yeah.
He passive aggressively shits when you won't let him in a room. Have you noticed that?
He knows what's up.
Okay. So the prosecutor quoted Alice Walker's novel, The Color Purple, very dramatically and played the 911 tape for jurors. He laid out a timeline of events leading up to Sharika's murder. He showed them Sharika's note, which said, quote, Rae slowed down. Rae had something to do with this, that she had written and given to Charlotte police in the hospital.
That's damning.
Carruth's attorney showed that he was an active NFL player making lots of money. He earned about $652,000 a year at the time of the shooting. He could have easily afforded child support payments. Rudolf said, quote, where is the motive? I see no motive here. Rudolf made it clear that Watkins had given a statement to the jailer and that he had cut a deal with the state, a deal in which he was the admitted shooter and was going to avoid the death penalty. Watkins had a history of violence against women dating back to 1983. And while Carruth was adored by women, they thought of him as a kind, generous, gentle person.
Well, I mean, all those women showing up to support him does kind of lead you to believe that maybe, it would kind of lead the jury to believe maybe he's not a mean guy. Because why would if he was this mean, cruel person who's capable of murder, if you will, why would all these women show up to support him in court?
Well, there's that. I mean, it definitely, like I said, if you were on the jury, would maybe give you pause, right?
All you need is that reasonable doubt with one juror.
I'm so sad I just broke a nail while we were sitting here.
How did you sit still, break a nail?
I don't know. He said, quote, how could he turn from someone who had never been in trouble a day in his life, who had never done anything to any woman, who had never done anything to Sharika, to turn from that into a contract killer overnight? There is no motive here. Rudolf walked jurors through a timeline painting a picture of the November 15th day. He had hung out with friends, he played video games, and he'd had his TV satellite repaired. If Rae Carruth was orchestrating a murder, why were the hitmen scrambling to find this gun only a few hours before the alleged hit took place?
Well, I find that strange. Either you're a dummy or you haven't really planned this out.
Because if you remember, they claimed that Rae Carruth called them like an hour basically before the shooting was supposed to take place, before he was going to the movies, asking like, who's got a gun? Also, Rudolph asked, why would Rae invite Sharika to a public movie where they would be seen together only to murder her in an ambush, when witnesses could place them together? He then proceeded to plant doubt in the jurors' minds about the traumatic event and Sharika's 911 call, how the woman might have misinterpreted what was happening. He described the frailty of the human mind and how it reacts in traumatic conditions. Calm down, bro. I think he doesn't like Rae Carruth. I mean, so what do you think, Dylan? I mean, is he painting, like, reasonable doubt here?
Well, I mean, to a degree, I must say, it gives you something to think about. It's not as cut and dry as I believe the case to have been.
A nurse who testified admitted that she'd been briefed by police that Carruth was the main suspect. Rudolph asked how if Sharika had come out of a 6-hour operation, had been given a drug cocktail of sedatives and painkillers, how could anyone be sure she was making accurate statements or that she wasn't being influenced by the people around her? After all, her entire family thought Rae had killed her.
Right.
But a witness named Farrell Blaylock, who had heard gunshots and whose lawn Sharika had driven onto to get help, testified that Sharika told officers Rae had actually fired the gun. Now, again, this doesn't make sense, as we know that Rae is not the gunman. So it seems this witness was actually proving the defense's point.
That this has been so sensationalized and everything else that everyone's kind of keying in on Rae in this situation.
Well, and that Sharika is in the vehicle bleeding, telling police and paramedics he had the gun, he shot me, when we know he wasn't the gunman. So again, it's just proving this point, like, how do we know she's making accurate statements? She's gone through a traumatic event. She's telling officers he shot me. And then at the hospital, she's saying the same thing, but she's been given a bunch of painkillers.
And for all we know, she may think that it was Rae that shot her, but doesn't really know.
Well, yeah, but in the 911 call, she was saying that he was in the vehicle in front of her and he slowed down and someone else shot her. So obviously it's just kind of proving the defense's point that she's confused or that she's not thinking clearly.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Now, against his lawyer's advice, Michael Kennedy took the witness stand, agreeing to testify without a plea agreement in place. He said the only reason he was coming forward was so Sharika's family could know what really happened. He told the jury Rae had made a call, that evening, looking for a vehicle, looking for a gun. He had made all the arrangements for Sharika's murder, including paying this guy Van Watkins. He asked Kennedy to, like I said, procure a car, a gun, Dylan. Damaging to his statements, he admitted he had not told the entire story during his first testimony. So he'd given a statement like, at first, then like kind of backtracked what he had said. Like he mentioned he was the person who'd gotten the gun, and in the first testimony, he didn't tell that part.
Yeah, so I mean, that just instantly calls into question, if you're lying now, how do I know you weren't lying then? I mean, that's what you get into.
Well, it does. Candace Smith, she took the stand detailing how Rae admitted he didn't want the child and had asked Sharika to have an abortion. She also included that Rae had asked to borrow her car on the evening of the shooting. Candace also told the jurors how Rae admitted that the morning after Sharika's shooting, while they were at the hospital, he told her he'd paid someone to do it. But Rudolf pointed out that Candace was mad that Rae canceled plans with her on November 15th to go out with Sharika Adams instead. He also brought up a time that Candace had brought a box cutter to Carruth's house because another woman was there.
Oh, okay.
He asked, quote, "Is there any reason why you're more stable today than you were when you took this box cutter to his house?"
Damn.
I know.
Rudolph's not playing.
Then he revealed she'd gotten 23 calls from the jail, and 4 of the calls had been on the day that Michael Kennedy had given his statement to police. A jailer had overheard Van Watkins on the phone talking about a woman named Candace. Also, Michael Kennedy's arrest for selling crack cocaine in 1996 had not been turned over to the defense. Rudolph often raises suspicions of evidence tampering based on experience that he's had as an attorney. And this information was coming in late at a time when it was not as crucial to the case. So he's pointing out, like, the prosecution didn't give me this information that this guy has sold crack, is a known drug dealer. That's crucial to my defense, that this guy's a drug dealer mad that Carruth wouldn't loan him money.
Right.
And now you're giving this to me after he's testified?
Right.
Doesn't really help my case now.
Well, yeah, and he's saying there wasn't full disclosure in the first place. And imagine Rudolph in the Peterson case talking about evidence tampering and things like that.
Yeah.
So this guy doesn't play around with things like that.
Then Charles Shackelford, the pro basketball player who had dated Candace Smith, he took the stand to provide what they called hearsay evidence that supposedly Rae confessed to Candace at the hospital. But his testimony ended up painting Candace as a lying gold digger who had kept her relationship with Carruth a secret, though Shackelford had been paying her bills.
Damn, dude.
I
Now,
mean,
the very phrase hearsay, and I'm not defending Carruth because I think he's a dumbass. Hearsay evidence, I mean, just sounds like that should not be allowed, right?
I mean, I didn't think it was allowed.
Well, I thought object hearsay is one of the bigger, more common objections when someone's given testimony.
Well, it could have been that perhaps the prosecution was allowing this in because they thought it helped their case. But then David Rudolph is such a fucking shark that he goes in and ends up taking their witness and like melting the guy down and making this Candace girl look totally like a shit.
Well, yeah, I'm sure his line of questioning was something along the lines, did you know she had a relationship with Rae while she was with you?
And
blah, blah, blah.
And Rudolph had her on the stand questioning her about this relationship, saying, so you were like basically shacked up with Charles Shackelford, a married man, so clearly you don't have any morals, and you're seeing Carruth on the side and you're being dishonest about that. So what else are you being dishonest about?
Damn.
I mean, just totally like knifing these witnesses, dude. I'm telling you, this guy, he's an asshole, but he would be a fucking amazing attorney, it sounds like. So, Charles Shackelford testified that that Candace was jealous that Sharika Adams was carrying Rae's baby.
He said that?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Which could give this Candace motivation to lie on Rae.
Well, it just the very picture of a scorned woman, because, if there's any, especially men on the jury, like, she'll say anything. You know what I mean?
A lot of other witnesses like Amber Turner, Michelle Wright, both exes, Rudolph basically pointed that out too. Like, these are two women who ended relationships with Rae on bad terms, and how do we know they're not just saying this stuff about him? Because they're upset. Because they got dumped.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. Now, Rudolph has done his job as a defense attorney, painting reasonable doubt to jurors. And, well, I'll be honest, to me, I'd have a hard time if I was on this jury being like 100% in with the prosecution's theory.
Well, he didn't just plant one seed. It's almost like he poked holes everywhere he turned.
Yeah.
And that, you know what I mean?
As well as discrediting many of the prosecution's witnesses. So I am left with more questions than answers, and I'm not sure as a juror what I'd think, but I might have a hard time with a conviction.
Even if
Just me, personally.
Well, you can reach a point to where you think wholeheartedly that the guy's guilty, but there's still that.
Is there evidence to back it up?
Is there evidence to back it up? Does the prosecution prove their case or their theory of events? And do you have even an inkling of doubt about any of the components of said case? So, I mean, that can happen, right?
Yeah. Well, in the end, Carruth was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, but not guilty on the first-degree murder charges. He was sentenced to 18 to 24 years in prison.
Wow. So Rudolf did his job to a degree because he got premeditation, first-degree murder off the table, right? And okay.
And the death penalty.
So
in prison, Rae was paid $1 a day working as a barber, a far cry from his $36,000 weekly salary with the NFL. On October 22nd, 2018, Rae Carruth was released from prison. He lives in an undisclosed town in Pennsylvania with friends, according to Charlotte Observer reporter Scott Fowler, who extensively covered Rae's case over the past 20 years.
Oh my gosh.
Van Brett Watkins was sentenced to 40 to 50 years in prison for his role in Sharika's murder. In an interview with Fowler, he told the reporter, "I'm looking for a way to murder Rae Carruth."
Okay.
Michael Kennedy served 10 years for his role in Sharika's murder. Kennedy testified that Carruth had orchestrated the attack on Adams, giving him $100 to buy a gun hours before she was shot. Stanley Abraham, Kennedy's best friend, if you remember, Boss was his nickname. He had been a passenger in the car during the attack. He was given a year in prison and was released in 2001 because his attorney was able to argue that, like, he was just a bystander. He
just happened to be in the car when this went down.
Yeah, and immediately, like, after this happened, demanded, like, let me out of the car. And yeah, he didn't come forward immediately with it, but, like, he wasn't.
Seemed obvious he wasn't part of it.
Yeah. Chancellor Lee Adams was raised by his grandmother Sandra Adams in Charlotte. Considered to be a miracle child, he struggled with brain damage and cerebral palsy. However, like his mother, Chancellor was a fighter. He graduated from Julius B. Chambers High School this year, in June of 2021.
Wow, what a strong young man.
Despite his challenges, Chancellor continues to persevere. His grandmother said, quote, "I have seen Chancellor's determination, how he persists through things, his resilience, and overcoming so many of the odds. The journey of Chancellor and Sandra has engaged the community of Charlotte. Sandra has long since forgiven Rae Carruth for his role in the death of her daughter. She said, quote, "One of the main reasons I want Rae and Chancellor to have a relationship is because Chancellor is his son. And that's why I chose early on to forgive Rae, because I don't feel I can offer unconditional love to Chancellor if I don't forgive Rae. That's his father. It's part of him. Chancellor wouldn't be who he is without Rae. I want them to bond or at least meet again."
Wow. I mean, that's admirable. And I must say, I don't know if I'd be capable of that. But I do think that oftentimes family members that do go that far to truly forgive the perpetrators or the criminals that kill or hurt their people, that they give away, they lift a weight. They give away all that pressure and weight.
They always say hate and anger and resentment. Those are the things that end up eating you up.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't do anything to the other person. You're the one that has to live with that.
No, and I find that admirable because, again, don't know if I'm capable of that. And I think in the end, it probably is better off for those family members.
In an interview with Sports Illustrated.
Illustrated?
I've done a lot of talking today. In an interview, Dylan, with Sports Illustrated.
I said one with them bikinis in it.
She said, quote, "You can focus on what you've lost or what you have left."
Okay.
Wise words from this woman.
Damn, you think you would have come across with any profound quotes like that in a situation like this? Or would you be more animalistic with it?
It's very mind-blowing, reading these interviews with her and just seeing, what a strong person she is.
Well, I think that's just
I think we can just see that she's really a good person.
that's a person who has class.
And she's done a really good job of raising her grandson and just being so supportive of him. And I don't know. I think she's a pretty awesome person.
It's amazing.
My sources for this 2-part have been Charlotte Observer series, written by Scott Fowler. Awesome. He's done so much coverage over the last 20 years. I mean, there's just tons of articles, really in-depth interviews with everybody from Sandra to Theodore, Van Watkins in prison. He got like the only interview Van Watkins has ever given recently.
Wow.
I think it was in 2018 when Rae was getting out of prison. He sat down with him. I mean, very intense. You got to read those interviews if you want. The book Carruth, Sex, Money, Murder, and the NFL by William Wyatt. Also, American Justice, the old TV show. The episode Conspiracy to Kill, the Rae Carruth story, which aired in 2001. You can find that on streaming platforms.
Noise.
And then, of course, the show Deadly Sins, Don't Make Me Kill You, which aired in 2015. I believe I found both of those episodes on Amazon.
Oh, well, thank you for that story because I certainly learned a lot more about it.
You did?
Yeah, about how it truly went down and all the nuts and bolts.
So what are you left like feeling about Rae in this situation? Do you think he's guilty?
I can't say. I don't know because, he wasn't, he was a bit of a turd in some of these things that you described. But, I mean, like you said, at the very least, he had a very good lawyer who did kind of poke holes in a lot of the prosecution's witnesses and parts of their case and would leave me possibly with some reasonable doubt as to, and I think that jury had a little doubt is why they, got rid of the first degree and the death penalty charges off the table there. But I don't know. I don't know if I'd say he's straight out innocent, but I do think he was, which oftentimes happens with these young men, is he still was messing with some dumbass people that brought turmoil into his life.
Well, so many of these true crime cases, Dylan, we see people like running with a bad crowd, and then it just sort of leads to like more bad things happening, right?
Yeah, and I don't get it because these guys are making this incredible amounts of money.
It's like Aaron Hernandez out doing this like dumbass thug wannabe, like gangbanger type of shit, and he's a fucking player making bank doing dumbass shit.
And the world's literally their oyster. They can, they can do anything and invest and have money the rest of their life. Their kids be set up and just be well off, and they're still running around doing this dumb shit. So at the very least, I think he was still messing around with some knucklehead, dumbass, violent people for various reasons, and it brought some, it definitely
seems to me the old phrase "idle hands are the devil's plaything"
right
is true in this situation because it's like Rae was benched for injuries. He wasn't playing, and he seems like somebody who was so hyper-focused on football. It was his whole life.
Well, it's like it kept him out of trouble and on the wrong right track.
And then the minute he's not playing and he meets this dumbass drug dealer who's like, hey, man, I like your rims. And then they start hanging out.
Yeah.
It's just like it leads to all this shit.
So, yeah, I guess I really don't know either way, but I definitely didn't know all those details. And it's very unfortunate. She was definitely attacked, and eventually it led to her murder. And her child survived, but he had serious issues he faced all his life, let alone the fact his mother was murdered. And I don't know. It's just a sad story.
It's a really sad story for Sharika and Chancellor, and Sharika's family.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's just such a hard situation. But I think I would have a hard time if I were on the jury because I do feel like Rudolf was a great defense attorney. He poked a lot of holes in the case, as you said, Dylan. But it's just a crazy story, right? I mean, talk about a fall from grace.
It's true. Look, I know we need to get going here, but before we leave, can I say something?
Sure.
I had a discussion today at work with a guy. He was talking about, isn't it funny how the Jizz Lane trial or whatever is really not getting a lot of coverage
Yeah.
in the media. But we had Rittenhouse trial every single minute and hiccup and burp and fart on TV, being discussed at length every night on every channel. But the Ghislaine, of course, Epstein's co-conspirator.
I love that you're calling her Ghislaine.
Well, yeah, I got that from the last pod, guys. What is it, Ghislaine?
I think it's Ghislaine.
Well, fuck her.
Ghislaine.
A piece of shit who went out and prayed and hunted victims for Epstein.
I agree.
God knows what else. So I'm calling
You
Ghislaine.
know why. You know why they're not covering it. You've seen that Epstein flight log. You got fucking ex-presidents and everybody on that list. Bill Gates.
What about the Manhattan apartment fully wired for
Wired.
audio and sound?
Yeah.
What evidence is there?
Okay. I mean, I know that when we get into talking about like child sex trafficking and, you know, people think, oh, it's just this QAnon bullshit, right? We have proof that you have these high profile men involved in sex trafficking. So it is a thing. And if you want to deny and be like, our government's not involved in that, bullshit. You have 2 ex-presidents on that flight log going to Epstein's Lolita Express plane, going to the island.
Countless CEOs, men in powerful positions.
Yeah.
And I just listened to that Dateline about that Nygaard.
Peter Nygaard,
The-
the fashion designer, same shit.
He had his
Same
own little
thing.
sex island there in the Bahamas.
His little key.
It was actually a compound or house in a very prominent area there in the
You
Bahamas.
had the guy Jimmy Savile in England. You had.
Oh my God.
I mean,
So, I mean, I don't know.
these sex rings do exist, and yeah, I'm not a QAnon person, and yeah, I think some of that's crazy, like Pizzagate. But do I believe that this shit happens? Yes, we have proof of it. And we see why they don't crack down on
that makes me sick.
these sex traffickers and this shit, because they're all involved in it.
And why they quietly sweep it to the side
Yeah.
when it comes out at the highest levels.
Ghislaine will probably get the most minimum sentence ever.
Some people think Epstein's not even dead. He was shuttled out of made to look like he died.
He was suicided.
And he was gotten out of jail and somewhere living with a reconstructed face.
He was fake suicided.
And at the level of money he had on top of connections and the dirt he had on people, that is not beyond the realm of possibility that they snuck him out of jail, basically, and he's had his face redone, and he's still got that weird egg dick.
He's living in the Arctic Circle with Hitler.
With the Nazis.
Yup.
Yup.
You think so?
Maybe because, Germany lost a war, the Nazis didn't. Look at Operation Paperclip. We brought all their worst scientists over here and put them into NASA and all that shit. Okay, I got to go now.
America, fuck yeah. We live in an amazing country.
We're going to continue this conversation, Heather, for the next 9 hours in the car.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay,
All right.
we're going to hit the road. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're still iffy on if we'll have an offbeat out this week, because we are going out of town for a couple of days. Dylan's still got his crazy work schedule. But we have a case ready to go for next weekend, the weekend after Christmas.
Look, I've got to say
It's going to be awesome.
My shit's going to calm down. My work bullshit's calming down. And we're going to get back on track because we missed you all.
Dylan
and
has.
We have to talk to you twice a week.
Dylan needs it. He loves to hear himself on the microphone.
Well, and I just like to connect.
He hears his little voice in the headphones and he just smiles. He loves to hear the sound of his own voice.
All right, but for now, ta-ta.
Hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Stuff-
Whatever you celebrate. If you don't celebrate, have a great week.
Stuff your mouth with ham.